Hey everyone, it's Classic DM, and this video is going to show you how I made the character sheets for the Advanced Dungeons and Dragons campaign that we do on the Classic DM channel. I know over the last year and a half, there's been tons of people asking me, where did you get those character sheets? How did you make those character sheets? How did you make those portraits? And I've answered some of those questions on Facebook postings and stuff like that, but it gets lost, and the question keeps getting asked, over and over and over again. So this is going to be a relatively in-depth guide on how I build a custom character sheet in PowerPoint and tips and little baby tricks that you can use to either design your own or you can take the one that I made and change it around. Now, when I create something like this, I do what I like. I don't ever make it to distribute it or sell it on Drive-Thru RPG. That's not the goal. I started making one for Pathfinder 2E, but it's just too many skills. It's just too much stuff. So since I'm kind of an old school 1977 Advanced Dungeons and Dragons guy, AD&D character sheets are brilliant. So in the show, I use PowerPoints for player panels. A lot of times you'll see gameplay situations where the players are running around the environment, and I've got the camera 1 showing the battlefield and the camera 2 showing the screen with the character sheet, and we're doing the roll for the dice and all this kind of stuff. Or we're talking about storyline elements. We got a shot like this and a screen like this. All these types of things. In fact, let's just make this. Let's make this full screen mode. So we have, we'll have these slides where we're talking about the storyline, what's happening. We have these portraits of different characters. We have text on here, and we're talking through it. It's kind of like giving a lecture in a school classroom. And we have these character sheets, and they look like this, right? They're really cool. I'm going to walk you through how I built this thing and why I did it the way I did, and some basic tips, and give you the flexibility for you to figure out how to make your own, because it's not very hard to do this at all. It just requires a good basic PowerPoint, graphic video game industry type presentation skills. So before we do anything, you're going to end up with a PDF that you can print. But where you start building this stuff is in PowerPoint, which looks like this. So what I am going to do here, let me just save this as a different file name real quick. We're going to call this scrub mode, right? That way you can just change this and manipulate it. PowerPoint pretty much is, let's give you a new slide. This is what it looks like when you make a brand new PowerPoint from scratch called blank presentation. It just looks like this. It's absolutely terrible. It has these stupid design ideas that pop up. It's completely annoying, right? One of the very first things you ever want to do with a PowerPoint is just delete this stupid stuff in the beginning. The second thing you want to do is remember what size you want your final format to be in, right? So in our format, we wanted to print these things. So let's just delete this slide here. And our goal is to make our very own cool character sheets. We use the Elephant EC page, the monk. So we want to look like this, right? Now in PowerPoint, each one of these things is an object, and I'm actually able to type in text, and I'm using certain fonts that I think are cool and whatever I like to do graphically, but I'm trying to keep it simple and clean and beautiful and colorful and whatever's interesting to me. But when you first start with PowerPoint, it looks like crap. So don't pick any predefined layouts or any kind of junk like that. Just go right over here to design, this tab at the top, and go over the far right hand side and say slide size. And what you can do is say custom slide size. Say I want this to be portrait, which is vertical like a piece of paper. And for some dumb reason, they put it as 7.5 by 13.33, which no piece of paper in the entire world is that size that I'm aware of. So you just want to change that to 8.5 by 11. Now I say that so you can go down to FedEx or FedEx copy or Office or whatever, and just have something you can print. So now you've got this PowerPoint with basic 8.5. You can see this is divided in the middle, right? Here's the 0. 4.5, 4.25, 4.25. That's 8.5 across here, and 11. You see this number here is 0, 0, 0 right to the middle. So you've got 5.5 inches up from 0, 0, and 5.5 inches down. Another thing you can do is you can go to View and turn on the grid lines and turn on the ruler. That may be useful to you or may be annoying. So the grid lines kind of help you see these are 1 inch by 1 inch grids. Hey, guess what we use in D&D and gaming? We use 1 inch grids. Really useful. So the funny thing is that this is on a 1080p HD TV that I'm recording this on. So it's not actually, I wish I could put my hand in front of the screen so you could see. That's not how big that really is. It's resizing, it's maximizing to fit to make it work for you. So you don't really need all these guides here, but you can turn them on if you want to. They're under view. You just have to remember that, let's put the guides here. Guides would be nice. This is the center. You remember that what you're making is really going to end up printing at 8.5 by 11. So this up here is really critical. So if you go to View and say Zoom, actual size, that's not really 8.5 by 11. I mean, this is the width of my hand probably goes from here to here in real life. My hands, I'm huge, 6'1.5" tall dude, right? So the size is never really, it's not really 100%. But this gives you an idea what it looks like if the zoom is different. So try not to worry too much about that. Don't look at the 100% mark in PDF, or don't look at the 100% mark and zoom to 100 and think that that's what really an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper really is. That's not true. This is set to maximize to fit. So what it's really doing is changing the scale to fit the screen between the width between the top and the bottom. And in PowerPoint, it's making it larger. It's almost like twice as large as it is in real life. Don't get too bogged down with that. Just trust in the fact that you made the PowerPoint, that you told it that you wanted the design, the slide size, to be a custom slide size. It remembers 8.5 by 11, right? A portrait and portrait. And then trust that this really is the size that you want it to be. All right, let's go from there. So now that we got the slide size set right, you can turn this to fit to window, and this is going to change the size so the top is up here and you've got some room at the bottom to work. You can turn these grid lines on and off if you want to. I like leaving the ruler on. The next thing I usually try to do is I want to create some kind of basic background. Now, one thing you may have seen is in another video I made, released and uploaded later tonight or already, is I take screenshots of characters in Black Desert Online. Like here's a high resolution one, right? So here's a high resolution PNG of a character I created just for making a character portrait. So one thing you need to do is you need to make those character portraits first. And the reason why is we're going to steal a background color from this portrait and make that the background color for the entire slide. Let me say that again, right? So you took screenshots in Black Desert Online. They look like this. You marquee selected them. You copied. You created a new image. You got by doing that, no matter what resolution it is, you've got this banding of color in the background. What you ultimately want to have happen is you kind of want the color of this background of the character portrait to sort of match the background of your thing here. Remember, we're making these to look cool, not to print. If we make this print, it would just all be black and white and totally boring. You don't want to do that. You'll make it look awesome, right? So I would suggest do all your dorking around with your pictures first and find those money shot pictures, thinking about like, do I want it to be a portrait picture? Do I want some totally dramatic landscape picture? In fact, let's do this. Say in your character sheet design, you want to make sure that your character shot is of your character standing in front of, is doing this, right? You want your character shot to look like this. You want your character portrait to be maybe something like a horizontal money shot like this, right? And that's what you want it to look like. So you've decided up front that you want your character portrait to look like that. So let's just say that real quick, right? You don't want it to be some close-up shot. So we're just going to, this is in the archive folder. Let's move this up a folder. Let's just call this Money 1, right? Money 1. So you've decided you want to do that you don't want to do a typical portrait. Now, from the ones that I made for my character sheets, I did them as a portrait, kind of like you had in Baldur's Gate and some of the old video games. I think it looks kind of like a portrait for a passport or something. But it depends what you want to do. It can be the most dramatic picture you want. It doesn't matter. There's no rule about it. Because when you're deciding the design of this thing, this space here, this is where the picture is going to end up going. Now, if you wanted to redesign this thing to have a different layout and have a different color scheme, you'll be able to do whatever you want. So let's just say in our design here, we wanted to use that picture that we just took a minute ago, this money shot one. So this is it in the picture. Just brought it in its regular format. Forget the design ideas. Anytime Windows suggests something, ignore it. So you say, that's really nice. It's a beautiful color for a photograph. You may want to think to yourself, wow, you know what I want to do? I really want to have a cool backdrop that picks up these browns. Like that's what you want to have happen. So you can go back to here, go back to your Paint Shop Pro program, and there's an eyedropper. Right, there's an eyedropper tool. So you can actually, as you move the eyedropper around, it's telling you what the color of that pixel is at that one particular point. So you say, so you see this little beige picture? The color of her armor's got black on it. There's blacks and browns. There's sunlight, green. Maybe you want to make this really dark, rusted brown background color like that. Or maybe you want to have this kind of blackish brown, kind of like this. You click that, and what that's going to do up here is going to tell you what that color is, right? So now you're actually able to take that color and make a graphic, right? That's the same size, the same actual color as that. So what you want to do is go new and pick something really small, like 64 by 64. So you have a 64 by 64 picture, and you can just pick this tool here and just fill it. And there you go. So you got this tiny little picture zoomed in by 1358%. You can say, okay, I want to save that as back 1, right? And let's try a couple more for experiments. Let's get our eyedropper tool. And let's say we wanted to use this black brown color here. See how it's picked it up here, this rusted chocolate color. Just go to File, New. It should remember the size you had before. And then you just want to fill the whole thing with this little bucket here. It looks like a paint bucket. Fill it. And then you say File, Save As. And we just call this back 2, right? And you can see what I did when I was designing mine. Here's what I did, right? Here's what I did. I said, well, I want my portraits to look like this. In fact, let's open up the old an Elfanisi picture. Here's a picture of Elfanisi. I said I wanted this picture to be the backdrop picture, so I picked a blue that was in that background there. And then I created I created some little picture like this. And then I filled it with that color. And then I saved it. And this is really small. Let me make sure you understand that real quick. This is 1300%. This is the size of that image that's the 100% size. It's a little paint chip, right? It's only zoomed in to make it friendly for you. So I've saved that real quick. And let's just call that, you can select an existing file name, click your mouse behind it, hit backspace once, and call that back 3. So now we can play around with some design work on this stuff. So, okay, we were thinking about doing this. Let's insert. You can right click this and say format the background. And you want to fill it. So you have options. You can fill it with a color. You could just pick an existing color. But this isn't matching the picture of your money shot of your cool character, right? Now, I'm not a digital artist. If you're a real digital artist, you should make a video that explains how to do this better. What I want to do instead is I want to use a file. So I actually want to use a picture or fill texture. So I'm actually not using some kind of texture here or anything like that. What I want to use a file. So let's see if we got a source. Let's try to find our picture here. Let's use this one. So there we go. So what we did, we basically told it to pick a color, and I'm going to duplicate this real quick. Right click this and duplicate this, and you can start playing around with different ideas and see what you like. This slide here, we're selected the second slide. Let's change this picture source, and let's pick the blue one. So is the blue one cool color? No, maybe not. Let's pick this one, and let's go to Insert Picture Source. Let's go to File. Let's pick this reddish rusted one. So now we got these different schemes. So you're starting to see a layout. Like, that's cool. One thing I also recommend you do is anytime you've got a picture, is right click it and go to Format Picture and give it a drop shadow. So in the Format Picture thing, it'll be shadow. You want to select color, black. You want it to be 50% transparent. And you want the angle of the sun that's coming in and pushing on it to not be 90 degrees. You want it to be 45 degrees. And you just click anywhere and it'll save that. So we're going to duplicate this slide. And we're going to change this, format this background back to white so you can see what I'm talking about. We're going to use a solid fill, make the color white. So if you look really closely, let's just zoom in really close here. Let's make this a 200% zoom. You'll see that this picture has a subtle little fuzzy edge, nice little drop shadow on this face here. Let's just do this. We just do some shapes so you can use this to communicate with. This side here, right? And also on this side along here. So you get a nice drop shadow on these two corners. It really helps anchor photographs in scenes. So that's something even in Word documents, the game industry we're doing. I always like to put a drop shadow in there. You can go back to this, whatever, if you want to. So when you make your picture, now once you've done that once, you can just duplicate it repeatedly. You don't need to, whoops, sorry about that. Just undo that. You don't need to continue to add drop shadows to every single picture. So in this situation here, I've got a drop shadow. I can Control C this. When I click the next slide, it's going to put it in the exact same position pretty much. So let's just pull this over. There you go. Let's copy this. Usually when you copy something and paste it, it's going to offset it a little bit. Let's put another one here. So now we got a picture of the drop shadow. That's kind of nice looking. And we can use this white one in the background at all times to give us a sense of what the color was. So say you wanted your character sheet to have name and stats and all that kind of stuff up front, and you want all the gear and the stuff at the bottom. Let's look at our design that we did before. Ours was really boring, right? So you had Elfanisi, we'll put her back over here. So we decided in the beginning that we were going to have a picture on the right with armor class, hit points, movement rate, and to hit AC 0, which is really a second edition thing, because we wanted to see the character at a glance and have those key pieces of combat information right away there. And these are just basic shapes you can use in PowerPoint. And the left side, the less frequently looked at information, but everyone, the core stat, because I use a lot of stat rolls. Like I'll make you make a dexterity check. Her dexterity is 17. I'll make you roll your dexterity and less on a d20 to make a save, kind of a thing. And that's all house rules I use. I wanted the page to have a title bar. So, okay, so you want to do a title bar. Let me show you how to make a little title bar for yours, right? So, okay, what you want to do is you want to go to, actually before I do, let me go back to the discussion about this design element. You then have saving throws, like somewhat every now and then, numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4 numbers, petrification, polymorph, rod, cephalon, all this stuff. You with the name of the character, or maybe a title underneath this. So you got like a header, the level, the alignment. The less important information is not as big of a font. So this at a glance, big pieces of information are really big, right? Less frequent information is here. Core stats are here. And at the bottom, we have like a primary and secondary weapon. We have some abilities wrote to help us remember, like speak with animals and plants. I don't know if you knew that, but monks can do that. They're immune to disease, poison, and slow. The font choice, we'll talk about that too. I put current experience level and how much they need towards the next level. And later on, as they got more pieces of gear, I wrote it in a smaller font that's more legible than this crazy architectural font. So when I was doing this design, I knew that when I was making my YouTube videos that I wanted to have this on taking up part of my screen. I only wanted part of the screen to have these screens on it like this. So I could be over here because I want to use this side over here for my camera. You'll notice that in all the videos I've done. So I designed this intentionally to be that way. But even this title page, like when I'm designing this, map's more important. Then I want to have the text down below. So and even later on where we have things like, okay, photographs of props and maps that the characters found or shots that show D20 to make it look interesting. We laid out things, what things need titles on it, what things are hand-drawn maps I discovered. So that's all design-oriented things. But let's take our design here. Say we want to say, we say with ourselves, I want to have that cool picture right, but kind of dividing between maybe all the name and the name and the character and the class and level, maybe more towards the top like this. And I want to have that information up at the top. And then down here, I want to have my character stats going across horizontally. So let's just throw out a few shapes in here to give you some ideas. So I want to have a block up here that has all like the name of the campaign or what Pathfinder game I'm playing or whatever. And I'm just doing this real quickly, right? And we're just going to change the colors of this so it doesn't look stupid. Let's use a gray box, line, no line. And let's give it our infamous lovely drop shadow so it's cool looking. You don't have to do this. I just like it. It's fun. Makes it look better. You could take this all the way to the edge. All the way to the edge. And we could change the color layer. And we're going to have maybe our stats are going to be fitting across here. And we might want to print it one day. So we want to put our stats. Maybe like here's a stat block here. We want to have information for the stats happening like this. This is how you kind of design a little layout. Because once you make these things, they're like little blockouts. You can rescale them all simultaneously. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We need one more for our statistics. Ability scores. And see these little red markers? Those little red markers are letting you know how much far spacing is. And you can look at this and tell that so many of them are spaced equally, but one of them's not. So this one here, if we start moving it, there. See how it says the red marker? It says you now equally space these the same increment apart. I move this up a little bit. It's a different spacing. And if you move it here, you can even see the dash line. See, this is aligned with that. Let's give you a quick example of that. Here's a block in the middle of nowhere, different size. I can start aligning it to these boxes. That means it's aligned on the left face, line on the right face, and through the center line of the adjacent one. So I can start doing that and align this here. See that red bar, vertical bar? That means the spacing is correct. So you can always take one of these things and duplicate it. When you duplicate it, it always kind of shuffles it down to the right a little bit. So you can then drag this down here and try to get this to fit as best you can. There you go. And maybe move this one. You can also use the arrow key. Now let me zoom in a little bit so you can see what I'm talking about with that. Let's go to 200%, and you're going to use the slider bar here to pan a little bit because you start scrolling the mouse wheel too much. You can use the arrow key to move this thing like this, little tiny little per pixel movements, right? If you start trying to do it by the mouse, it's going to start click, 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 it's kind of hard to do it. You can also grab this thing and you can do shift and make things stretch it larger and all those kinds of details. Once you start working with this stuff, you'll find there's all kinds of neat tips you can do to get things just right. And you only do as much just right stuff as you really want to. So we were talking about design. Let's go back to that. Let's do fit to window. All right, cool. So we talk about having 6 ability scores maybe here, and with that idea, maybe what we want to do, I'm going to copy this and put this down here, and we're going to save where we are so far. Don't lose what we've been doing. What are we going to call this? Let's call this character sheet sucks. Okay. And I want to save it somewhere in particular. Yes, I know that. Turn this off. Let's save this somewhere in particular. So I'm going to put this on my PC. Let's put that Black Desert folder where we're taking screenshots before. Here's our Black Desert. Let's put this on details. Okay, now we got that saved. All right, so you imagine your character sheet. They might have some information for each one of the characters, statistics. They're kind of like little lines like this and stuff like that. We have all the information placed on there. So you might have some lines like this. You can hold on the shift button, select one, shift, select the second one, control C, control V, copies it, drag it down. Here's another one. Take another one, drag it down. You start getting an idea. We're just designing here, right? So we're just trying to get an idea how things could work. Because once we get kind of it lined up, we can hold down the left mouse button and select this entire thing and grab the middle and move it around. So that's kind of cool. What would be a cool place for all the statistics? Do you want that up here? Do you want the character picture down here? Let's put the picture over here so we can grab all this and say, oh, you know, this would be the statistics, but I really want this to be at the top. Maybe I want my character picture profile to not be as big. I want it to be like this. So I'm going to grab this, drag this down, pull it down, put here, stick this up here. And even if I print it and the borders are clear, that's okay. I want the character sheet. If you are going to print it, try to keep it about a ½ inch off because it's going to be margins. If you keep it in a little bit, it'll be okay. You're like, oh, that looks kind of cool. This will work pretty good. I want to have her name and all this title and stuff happening there. So I'm going to take all the ability score type stuff. I'm going to move it down. I'm going to have her cool character title and intro and languages and information like that. And when I'm talking about that, I'm talking about like this block here, right? So this block you're seeing here. Picture. I like to put these types of things on top of the picture. In fact, we could even steal these if we wanted to. I'm not going to. And all these things here, you really don't need much space for these. And you don't really need them all. You may memorize these things. You usually just need reaction, attack adjustment, defensive adjustment, and these other ones you can look up in the player handbook. The additional languages is whatever. The to hit damage and weight allowance, you need those. But most of the statistics in AD&D, you don't really need all of them on a character sheet. Having them all there doesn't make it any better. So usually this much room here works pretty well. So maybe you have all that information across there, or maybe you decide you want to put it as written font on translucent thing on top of this. Let me give you an idea how that could work. So you could do this, make it black, transparency, make it 50%, and you can make a little bar like you see a lot of my little titles are. Let's just put this, insert a text box, okay? Let's put a text box here, and we're going to call her, I don't know, Sasha Argonova. And this is just a default dumb Calibri font. So this is going to just change this to something pretty. I like Allegra. Let's change this color to something white because we're going to put it on top of here. And just right click this to make sure ignore because I don't care about spell checking. And then we can select this by left click and dragging. Mess around with the font. And there we go. That's kind of cool. That's her name. Now we made one text box with a font that we like in the same field. We just copy it and we can change that and change the font size down to something smaller. And let's say she was I don't know, level 10 druid, and you would say race. I don't know what's she gonna be. Call her an elf. And you could take this, each individual element. And I'm very much into minimalism. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this out, make each one of these an individual element so I can move them around individually for composition. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit here so you can see better. And I'm doing this because I kind of want you to get a sense like, how do I design this crap? So she's a druid. I'm gonna make a little guideline. So we're gonna make a box here. And we use the box as a guideline for how we're lining things up. You know, you can try to line things up like this, and then take the arrow keys and drag them over. But sometimes it's better to create a little blue guideline and then make your own little guideline that seems to be where everything's going to go. I might want to put a dash in between here. Let's just make a default dash that we can use for everything. And you can really, really go to town with this kind of design work. All right, so let's go take this. And you can shuffle the order of them really quick. Say she's level 6. And say you want to put where she's from. Let's get rid of that. What do you want to say she's from? Kit. Okay. And you say, okay, this is cool. She's an elf druid. And you say she's level 6, maybe underneath it. Just save this for later use. Ignore all. Put this maybe between the two. Cat level 6. And maybe you want to say, you know what, that font's kind of big. Let's drop that down to 14. Maybe want this to be down here a little bit better. And you start getting into the little details. So, you know what, I want to add a little line here that kind of separates these things. So I want to put a line. Just put a vertical line here. Let's go over here and change the color to white. Doesn't really need a drop shadow, but I love drop shadows. I put them on everything. It makes things leap off the page better. There you go. And you can, if you want to, even like highlight these things and make them have a drop shadow and by clicking the shadow tool like that, but sometimes that's too much. The main name though, it will always look good with a drop shadow on it. And then you can like select this whole set of stuff here, start seeing what looks really neat. Now this isn't really a great design, but it's just giving you an idea of the kinds of things you do. Let's go back to fit. You know, so you start having this idea, you're like, that's kind of neat. And so we got that layout like that. I'm just going to take this, I'm going to duplicate this whole slide. And let's see what it's like if we get a more dark black background than what we had previously. Go back to our little Paint Shop Pro program. Let's see what dark. Let's get a darker black. Can make a new picture. Remember the 64 by 64 trick where we take this and take the paint can, paint it. That's kind of nasty. And we're going to call that back 4. Just minimize this. I'll go back to our PowerPoint. And we're in the second one here. That's what we did on purpose. Format background. Fill picture. Picture source. Now this has happened sometimes in Windows. It's gone back to detail mode because I did detail mode earlier. Just use this drop down menu up here and go back to large icons or whatever size you want. We said back 4, right? So that's really dark. Now that may be too dark because all your other font may read kind of funny on here. But let's see what that would look like. Let's just do a test with these black windows. I'm going to copy this. Now since it's all been copied at once, we can group that over. Take this and get rid of it. Select all this. And it remembers the layering of things. So we might say, that's a little too dark. So let's go back to here. And let's pick the lighter chocolatey color. That's not too bad. And then we got this box here. You can start playing around with where this box needs to go. And you start playing around with this information here. You could say strength. intelligence. And I think you get the picture from that. Excel, you start putting your stats there, make a big block. And you see I did that on my design too. So I created kind of a line to define where these things were. So this is the way you do this kind of stuff. You start laying this stuff out, start thinking of an idea, and lay out the whole area. You really need to think of things in terms of regions, just like magazine layout. So these translucent boxes, you would say, you know what, I want to keep me more translucent so you can see through. 75% translucent ends up being just like almost a brown box. 50. So let's get this down here, remove this. So let me show you in detail. This is just giving you a sense like how you can do these things. Let's take a look at, let's put this dude in here, right? So we got this big crazy looking dude here. And say we want that to be our portrait. We want the portrait to be kind of maybe up in this corner here, right? You want it to be a little smaller than that. Maybe about this big here, right? And we want to use this black translucent thing we created previously. And we want our whole portrait thing to have this backdrop. This is where we're going to talk about the depth and the layers of things. So this is in front of that, the black translucent box. So let's select this box. Let's go to the fill tab again. Let's put that fill down to 25% so it's a little bit more black so you can barely see over it, right? And let's just go this and it says send to back. Now, if I send that to back and then I send this to back too, or bring this to front, and I send it to back, it goes all the way to the back. So things either all the way to the back or all the way to the front. So sometimes when you're working on something, you're going to need to throw things out into the margin and get things to come and get the hierarchy to work correctly the way you want it to be. And you may want to take this and rescale it some. You may find that that's what you want your character thing to look like. You want it to look like that. Just copy this from another slide, put it on here. Remember, just ignore all these. You may want to select this. You may want to underline it. You may want to take the fonts and start thinking about where you're going to lay the other elements out. His picture does have a drop shadow. Remember, we'd like to do that. So it's always, remember, color, 50% translucency, so it's not all solid, 45%, 45-degree angle. Put his name. You can say, do I want it centered? Do I want it like this? So like we did in our design, we decided to cram a lot of information. Character name, you know, we gave her a little title, Master of the Western Winds. So she can just steal this and put this in the other PowerPoint. And then you can see how that looks. So you can say, well, I want that to be like Eliphanes's title, right? You may not like that. You may like a different kind of look. You may want to play around with the font and find a font that's something you like. And you can go download cool fonts on the web. Let's say you're like, I really want this, I really want something really, you know, some of them resize themselves as well, so you have to be careful with that. Some you want something that's more Times Roman but more smooth around the edges. Looks like it comes from a magazine, or maybe you want it to look like this. Yeah, that's the look you want. Let's just pick something that's you know, have architectural ones like this, like Flux Architect. Isn't as hard to read. Looks kind of goofy. Looks like someone did with a magic marker. That may be something you want as well. Let's go down here and pick something that's Dante is cool. That's not bad. It's not too bold. And of course, once you select it, you can change the font with this right here. And you can make it bold or give it a drop shadow. You may want to underline it as well. You may want to select the entire name and underline all of it. You want to take the other name you made previously, make that the same font. What we're using, Dante or something. Usually it remembers what you've used at the top, but you can't always trust it. Using Dante for that. You can't hardly read it. Let's get a white font. Jack this size up to 10 or 11. And you could just go graphic design world forever. We're going to take this, put this here. This is a box. This is just an empty box. Let me show you how to make that. Insert, shape, box, left click, drag, box, no fill. Now it has a line. Line, white, point size. Okay. In this case, this one is 2 points. This is 2 points. I use a drop shadow for everything because I think it gives a nice little punch. Once you've made one of these little tools once, 45-degree angle, 50% translucency, you can grab this box. You've basically made a little frame, right? And you can select that and say, you know, I don't like it there. I want the frame to be up here. Grab the corner, pull it like that. Copy that, put it here, right? Play around what it would look like with her. Does it look right? Does it look weird? Do you want her picture brought in like this? So these little individual elements, I'm selecting everything, I'm unselecting the black. So I can take all this and drag it in. And take this, I'm going to slide it up a little bit. Let me show you what I'm doing. I'm doing this kind of detail. 200%. I don't want the black overlapping this. I'm making it come right to the edge so the white reads. See this little gap here? I want that to go right to the edge. I don't want it on top of it. I want it right on the edge. Those subtle details like that make a big difference. Same thing here, drag it right to the inside edge. And you can do that with the arrow keys to get the per pixel movement. But you only do these kind of details when you're done. You might like that. Oops, let's just fit this to window. You may find that this doesn't have enough banding going on with it. You want to have more of a band like that. You may be like, you know what, I hate the color. Let's pick the blue that we used in the other one. Huge contrast, that may look better. Maybe there's something in the sky you like better. I'm going to go back over to the eyedropper, maybe like this blue from the sky. File, new. Size, paint bucket, color, file, save as, back, right click behind it, backspace 1, 5. And just go back to here. Maybe duplicate it so you don't lose what you've done because you can compare the two. Right click in the middle of the frame, format background, insert. I'll also do source again. Back 5, more of a baby blue color. I don't know. So that's the kind of thing is you do all these elements, these little pieces, like keeping things as individual elements, you're able to resize and move things. You're able to use the marquee tool to drag and select and multi-select. It gets to a point where you have a lot of things close together and it's hard to multi-select them again. Like you may find that like the little bar is cool, but I don't like, that's when you want to kind of zoom in, right? You want the druid, you want this part. You don't like the dashes. You may want to just put the dash inside, make it all one unit, so you don't have two individual things to fiddle with. Of course, you can go in there and put spaces if you want to, right? Put tabs in here. May want to make this font italics. So things like that. All right, so let's go dig into the details of this. Gives you an idea how to start and some building blocks for so many things. The sheet that I made, what could you do with it? So let's just zoom in kind of close here and let you talk about which each one of these elements are. Okay, I'm gonna zoom in close, and then we'll wrap this video up because I think this is what we've been doing this for. 39 minutes or something. So here's a zoom in version of the Elephant EC sheet. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete every single slide in this presentation except her sheet, so I can show you these individual elements. Let me multi-select these. All right, cool. I'm just going to duplicate this. All right, so we only got one sheet. Let's get rid of this one. Don't have to worry about the slide, the page flipping past you all the time. So this is an individual element. Something I like doing. I like the kind of Guild Wars 2 half black background, right? You know, you could just kill this. Character sheet, name of the campaign. Then this is an individual element. You know, level and class. This is an actual line. This was a huge pain in the butt. This font was kind of cool. I liked it a year ago. I don't like it as much anymore. You may find that happens a lot. You may feel like, oh, that looks terrible and it's bold. I don't like it bold. I want it to look like this. You can do whatever you want. You're going to need to kind of go in there and kind of move it around a little bit. That's where you want to do things with the little arrow keys like this. You may want it to be white. These are all individual elements. Lines, text box, line, text box, line, box with no inside, picture from Black Desert Online. This is a text box, right? This is another translucent gray. This is another translucent box with no fill. So those are the basic elements made to use to build the sheet. This is another thing here. And you can see, you know, the alignment's not that great. I didn't line this up perfectly with that because I knew no one's going to look at that much detail. I kind of just went like this. See how the guidelines there where you can make this thing absolutely perfect if you want to. I decided to put down here below to like the abilities I forgot that the monk can do, and some of her thief abilities. I put them down here. I put magic items of different color. Excuse me. She had an artifact weapon that has all these incredible powers. So I put all the gear down the bottom so I can just take this and edit this and change this to whatever I want it to be. I even you can make the font smaller and smaller and smaller, or bigger and bigger and bigger by pressing up and down here if it doesn't fit, as long as you can actually read it. So all these are just the individual elements used to lay out this character sheet, and that's basically how I did it. For you, if you were to take this character sheet and try to use it, you're going to find that unless you really enjoy doing stuff in PowerPoint, that is a massive pain to try to do these things. One thing you may want to do is like start off by deleting things you don't want and changing fonts to font you have. Like if you load this up on your machine and you don't have this Architect 2 font, this is going to probably come up looking like Times Roman or something. Might look really weird, right? Might end up looking like this, right? It might end up looking like that, and it's not centered right. It's going to look really funky. But that's the basic idea of how you do these things. And I think that it's fun to do character sheets for any game your own way by showing the information that only you think is necessary. And just be sure you make duplicate copies of your slides when you're doing your experimentation. Start thinking about ideas like, how do I want the character frame to work? What looks good to me? Do I want this white? Do I want the black background? Keep in mind the margins. You know, get your cool pictures. Use a basic graphic editing program to, you know, just do some basics with layers. You don't really do anything too complicated. There's no major, you're not using a Cintiq or anything or doing kind of weird editing or anything like that. And just play around with the different designs and see what you can come up with. You may find that doing it in PowerPoint is one of the coolest things you could possibly ever do. Because when you get finished with it, let's say that we went through all this design work and we decided at the end that we hated everything. Hated this, hated this, hated this, didn't like this one, didn't like this one, that we kind of like this one, right? We like this idea. Say our final design looked like this. We'll format the background with this light gray color. right? And say this is what you loved. You want this to look great. So then what you do is you go File, and you say Save As, and change this down to Power PDF, and then save it. And then what will happen is you'll have that in the same folder that you had the other stuff in. Ooh, let's see here. Where's our documents? We just put this in temporary in the Black Desert Online folder. Let's make this bigger here. Or we have up a folder. Yeah, here it is. So let's just make this smaller. Yeah, so then we have a PowerPoint version of that character sheet. You can actually print that, and that's how it looks. And you can just rescale this to whatever you want it to be. And there's, then you have your character sheet made that way. So that's basically how I made these character sheets. And yeah, I hope it's cool. What I'll do is I'll create a single PowerPoint that just has the Warriors page on it, and you can take it from there and do what you want to do with it. And if you've loaded up and the fonts are all wrong, you know why. Okay, cool. We'll leave it at that, and hope you have fun with it. And we'll talk to you later, and hope you have fun. And I think that making these kind of things is really rewarding and really cool. And you may find that your friends want you to make things for them. And one thing you can do is you can get a lot of design ideas from the internet. And here's an example. Let's do this. Okay. So here you go. Check this out, right? So this is a website for the U.S. Air Force, and you can see the font selection and the layout and the little lines and all the colors. And web design is a really great way for you to get a sense of these little white boxes around text. Is really interesting, really neat. Large titles like this, what is it you want to check out and read about? So go to the web and find really compelling, interesting websites that have interesting things in it, and see how they do these layouts. People that do these layouts are professionals. The text box, the layout, the hierarchy, like this font size here, followed by a body font, followed by a secondary header, additional information. Imagine it's your character sheet. This is a list of your powers. This is like your little backstory where you came from. You maybe you have an introduction saying that you're a druid that was lost in the forest and abandoned their village and now live on their own, but have a problem with cats and hate cats and love wolves, right? And then you have the major title that has a character name. You have the cool photograph across the front. I mean, the photograph's just implying something. It's blurred in the background. You can create those pictures in, from video games like we did here with Black Desert Online, and whether it's a composition shot like this, or whether it's an individual, these are all backgrounds, whether it's a shot of the character like this, you'll be able to create all kinds of interesting things. It's not really hard. It doesn't take a lot of graphical skill. It just takes experimentation with layout and design to try to find things that work for you. Like, for example, let's look at this, right? So we got this Pathfinder 2nd edition thing. We've got some basic articles you can click on. You click on this article and go to this thing. So we got a title, we got an intro, we got a little quote here, got the information down below. We got some pictures down below that you can see the different pictures, the whole layout. So when we designed this layout for this thing, we're trying to do the composition, where the scale is, the font choices, the information you really need to know, and all that kind of stuff is the stuff that's going to make a big difference for you when you get ready to make your cool character sheet. Now, I'm not saying these are awesome. I don't really like it that much anymore, but you might find it's really cool and it works really well for you. So I'll put that on the Patreon page, and for you guys who want to check it out, you may enjoy messing with it. If you ever have any questions about this kind of layout design stuff, I'll be happy to field it for you. All right, we'll talk to you later. Let's see you.